onda fans de Beyond the Screen?
Yo soy Rex y este no es Josa.
Soy Doc, el otro productor que jamás sale, pero aquí estoy.
Aquí tenemos la especial aparición de nuestro otro productor Doc, que estamos muy felices de tener aquí porque Josa hoy no nos puede acompañar, la verdad lo extrañamos mucho.
Josa, te extraño.
Sí, la verdad lo extrañamos, pero si no lo quieren extrañar, aquí hay una foto de él y si no lo quieren extrañar más, vayan a ver cualquier otro capítulo de Beyond the Screen porque está ahí saliendo de host. Pero bueno, el día de hoy venimos a...
¿Dónde estamos?
Venimos a una masterclass con el director Paul Thomas Anderson que viene a promocionar su nueva película One Battle After Another.
Un elenco, la verdad, formidable. Tiene a...
actores como Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro. Tiana Taylor. Trae un elencazo, la verdad es que estamos muy emocionados. Como yo soy una persona que aspira a hacer cine, Doc es una persona que aspira...
Vaya, entretenimiento.
Al entretenimiento en general. Estamos muy emocionados por escuchar qué es lo que nos tiene que decir.
A ver si nos responde un par de preguntas también.
Estamos muy emocionados, muy contentos de estar aquí. Pues estaremos vlogueando qué tal está toda esta experiencia, qué nos comparte. Así que quédense a ver el video.
Stay tuned.
Ahora, para los que no saben, ¿quién es Paul Thomas Anderson? Paul Thomas Anderson es uno de los directores de cine más influyentes y famosos de nuestros últimos años. Ha sido nominado en múltiples ocasiones a los premios Oscars como mejor guión para varias de sus películas e incluso mejor director. Sus películas también suelen tener varias nominaciones, ya sea mejor película, mejor actor de reparto, como fue el caso de Tom Cruise, etcétera, etcétera. Si no saben quién es aún, seguro les suenan algunas de sus películas como Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, Inherent Vice, etcétera. Es un director que tiene una trayectoria muy exitosa y que se conoce por ser un director que se arriesga, ya sea visualmente, con cambiando de género, etcétera, etcétera. Vamos a ver qué es lo que nos tiene para hoy en su masterclass.
Everyone and welcome. Today we are joined by 90 students from colleges around Mexico and 10 Latin American content creators for a special Q&A with one of the most complex and visionary filmmakers of our time, Paul Thomas Anderson. Yes. Well, I wanted to start with a question for you. One Battle After Another is a project that you developed over 20 years. Since you started with the first idea of this movie. Right. How did your perspective on the story evolve across those 2 decades? And what finally told you it was the right time to make it?
Oh gosh, well yeah, I mean, it's important to when you say you've been writing something for 20 years, you know, that gives a terrible impression that you like are chained to your desk and just the calendar, you know, is like flipping by, and so sure it's a long time, but it's really not like that at all, you know, to have written pieces of something back in like 2000, I remember 1999 or 2000, writing something that was the impetus was you don't really know what you want to write, but you have a kind of visions of doing a car chase in the desert or the kind of things that happen in westerns, you know. And so that kind of is a start. That's enough of a start. You kind of maybe you have some characters you don't quite know where they're going to go, and then if it doesn't really speak to you, it doesn't really kind of grab you, then you're kind of on to something else. And so I had pieces of this thing that just kept speaking to me over the years, and you come back to it like an old friend. You kind of go on vacation with it and sit and see where it is. And then at a certain point, I started bringing in Thomas Pynchon's fantastic book Vineland, and that was a great support system to take the center of that story is a ex-revolutionary in the woods with his daughter, and the past coming back to haunt him, a mother figure who's left. That was a very, very strong shape to use to factor in all these other things. So the second part of your question, this idea like who are we the same people? Are you the same person you were 20 years ago?
Probably not.
Probably not, but probably not. You know, it's this crazy thing. I don't feel the same. I have a totally different life than I did 20 years ago before I had kids, but we all still feel like we're the same person, but we have changed. You know, one of the films that I went to, there's a few different versions of it, but the one with Charles Laughton and Frederick March is Les Miserables. And the reason why I went to that film is because it has this terrific, you guys have all seen the film, right? Has everybody seen it? So you know it has this fantastic first act where all of this stuff happens, this crazy, crazy first act, and you jump ahead in time, and then you're dealing with, you think you are free, you think you have this new life, but consequences are chasing you, and they're arriving at your door, and you can't outrun your past. So I watched that, the one with Frederick March and Charles Laughton, I loved. And so and by the way, I should say, I watched that only like 5 or 6 years ago, and it really helped me, because before that, writing all these years, you try everything. You say, well, what if there's flashbacks? What if there's this? What if there's this? What if you're trying all these different things that never quite sit right? And I remember seeing that film and feeling like, that's what we should do. That's a linear way to do it. And then you kind of have the emphasis, at least in our story, it gives you an emphasis on the child 16 years later. And by the way, among them, I don't want to rush you, because we can, but a million other movies too. You know, tons of westerns. The Unforgiven, I watched a lot. Duel in the Sun, French Connection, obviously. Vanishing Point. Anytime you're going to do a car chase, you have to look at these films and these kind of desert films. Those are terrific inspirations.
It was more than one story that inspired this.
That's absolutely right. You know, and there's also just a great film I want to mention, make sure that people see it, called Running on Empty, which is a beautiful film that Sidney Lumet made. And that is very similar to our story, very different in how they approach the story, but similar in radical revolutionaries who have escaped the late 1860s and are now dealing with grown-up children, you know, and how to manage their life that they're living in secret, whether they can allow their child to blossom and join society. It's a beautiful film with River Phoenix and Christine Lod and Sidney Lumet directed.
Love the shout out and the recommendation.
Yeah.
And speaking of the collaborators that were part of this movie, Leonardo DiCaprio said he'd been waiting 20 years to work with you. Can you share what that collaboration was like and how he shaped Bob into something beyond what was on the page?
Well, you know, I mean, Leo works like most great actors do, which is you have something on the page that maybe is good, but they're going to take it and they're going to make it great. And some of that happens in conversations, you know. Leo and I think a lot of our conversations were really about the story and the direction that the story takes, because the traditional path that a story like this might take is a father is there to rescue his daughter. So if you take the traditional route, inevitably that father is going to have to shoot somebody else to save the daughter, right? That's how this stuff's supposed to go. But Leo was so strong in forming a character that really was going to be incapable of shooting somebody properly, right? That we have to follow that. We have to kind of address that each step of the way. Say, well, what is realistically, what is plausibly, what could Bob take care of? He can't get out of the starting gate. He can't remember the password. He can't just suddenly remember the password, right? It's not going to happen, right? So you have to you talk through all of the things, and you have to ground it. As much as the movie is wild and crazy, you keep have to asking yourself these very honest questions and the dialogue back and forth right between them. What could I really do? What could I accomplish? I'm not going to save the day. I'm not going to be able to suddenly remember the password. You know, these kinds of questions you're constantly asking yourself, and you try to ask as many as you can in the script stage, but then they all arise when you're in a three-dimensional space and you're really looking at the space and what's happening. You're just constantly asking yourself questions.
He knew what questions to ask.
Absolutely. Leo's the best question asker in the business, because he's always got a lot of them, and then until he doesn't, and then he has an incredible process of asking a billion questions, and then at a certain point they all kind of go away, and you just see him. He's like soaring. It's a very strange thing to witness, and that's probably why he's such a big star, of course.
And now moving into visuals, we have a question from Héctor Noé Nieto Garcia from UVM Coyoacán. He asks, in your visual style, there's a clear attention to detail. How do you decide the aesthetic and atmosphere of each film?
Sometimes it's okay to not be gourmet in your photography. You're there to tell a story. You don't want it to look ugly. It's a movie, it has to be exciting. You want all of those things. You're looking for visual energy, but to not be scared of making something ugly. Walk into a room, walk into a location and say, where is the light coming from? You know, what is realistic, what is honest? And then once you have the basis of what's honest, you can decide how much it needs to be magnified up because it's a movie, or whether you need it to stay right where it is.
How did you balance giving actors the freedom to explore their characters with the very specific vision that you have as a director?
Okay, well, I'll tell you how you do that. At least our approach to it is we try to do a tremendous amount of preparation with location scouts, using the phone, finding locations. The more you can find locations where you can be there for a few days and you can, it's important to walk in with a plan, obviously. But it's equally as important to be flexible in that plan, because if I don't think if you're an actor in a scene and you show up to work one day, I tell you where to stand, and I tell you to go over here, and I tell you to go over there, that you're going to feel very collaborative. You're not going to feel part of the process.
Right.
It's always important to walk in having a plan that you're prepared to throw out the window if the actors find something in the space. So in our very prolonged location scouts, we have a basic idea of how something might go, and usually I can guess pretty good, and sometimes there are scenes that if it's a small scene that just needs to get you from here to there, you do need something that you want to you tell everybody, and that's okay. But you have to walk in open to everything and be ready to see something new.
You chose to shoot the film on 35mm using VistaVision cameras and also release it in IMAX. What inspired you to choose these unique formats, and in which parts of the film did you feel they truly enhanced the visual experience?
Well, I knew we had a film that had tremendous propulsion and kind of a very large scale, and that playing in an IMAX screens would be very exciting for an audience. Obviously, they're tremendously successful. People love to go see those films. So finding a format that could blow up nicely in a very technical way, that was a large format, whatever you call it.
Which also kind of moves you to go to the theater, right?
Yeah, hopefully it encourages people to get to the theater, but it can be a selling point, sure, but once you're inside a theater and you see what it looks like, you go, well, that was worth it. It's a more expensive ticket. It better be worth it, and it is worth it. But the VistaVision was a good format for us because we had used it back in 2019. We made a Tom York film called Anima. It was a short film, and we used it, and it was so successful. We really felt comfortable saying, I think we could make a film with this. And we got very good at it by the end, and we had our regular old-fashioned 35mm camera, and we still shot some of the things with that, but all in all, we used about 75% of the film is in VistaVision, which is nice because it can blow up great to IMAX. It can also go down nicely to regular 35 or 70mm print. So it's a very versatile format for us to use. Yeah, we embraced it and loved it. I think it shows, I
think in your films, we often see characters caught in a transitional moment of American history. And relationships, we see relationships that both sustain and wound, and human connection amid chaos. One Battle After Another, I think, carries these themes too, yet it feels unlike anything you've made before. How do you revisit familiar questions while still giving us new answers?
Well, that makes me sound smarter than I really am. Because, every time I think it's human nature to think down, it's kind of like my kids look at what I wear and they're like, you wear the same thing every day. And I say, well, hang on, this is a different shade of a blue shirt. And they say, no, but we're creatures of habit generally. Or we think we're doing something brand new, and then there you are, I think I'm writing a brand new movie every time, and wow, this is so different. But you end up writing the same thing, so you and that's okay. You can't run away from that. You can't suddenly start to try to sound like another band if you sound like yourself, But to the question about transitions, I suppose it's true, and maybe that is it. Yeah, I mean, the setting for a movie helps, but it's not the main event, is it? The people in the middle of something.
Right.
So yes, if you have a backdrop of transition, generally you have kind of dramatic tension, yeah? Because I'm thinking about like Boogie Nights, you have something as peculiar as the porn industry, but if they're going through a transition from the 70s to 80s, from film to video, all right, now you have some element of a story. But it's really just window dressing to get dramatic tension and things happening, because it's the people in the middle of it that you care about.
Like in this case, you would say maybe about theme has to do with family, maybe. Like, what is
Absolutely,
family?
yeah. That's the only thing that anybody really knows about, really. Because if you start making a film about politics, that gets boring, right? Because sometimes it's confusing, sometimes you don't know what the hell's going on.
It changes every 5 minutes.
It changes every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it stays the same every 5 minutes. It's just like, okay, that's too complicated. But what we do know, I think what we all understand, are connections to family, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, people that we love, people that we hate. These kinds of basic things, well, they never really go out of fashion, I suppose. And I think that for me, I can understand them. Yeah, like that. I mean, they're kind of, a story like this should be able to, you can put it anywhere. It doesn't matter that it's today. It could be a science fiction story, it could be in the Middle Ages. Take it and put it anywhere. Hopefully it's a kind of story as old as time, Bad guys, good guys, pursuit, thing, past coming back to haunt you. These kinds of things have been around forever. You just have to kind of I have to find a connection to it in a way that makes it personal to me. And then hopefully then an audience responds to it. Yeah.
Will connect with it.
That's right.
Speaking of that, but going into a bit broader sense, maybe.
Well, I mean, nobody gives a shit about a car chase if you don't care about the people in the car, right? Then it's just a bunch of car. No one cares about the cars, they care about the people. So, I don't know. I suppose I have just as much. I suppose my favorite things to do are, my greatest memory of making this movie was sitting at the kitchen table with Leo and Chase, with Bob and Blua, and doing those scenes with, father and daughter, and the kids come to go to the dance and stuff. Oh, I don't know. That's just so much fun to do. Because you also, to be honest with you, you can do a good day's work when you're doing something like that, and you can feel it. You're connecting to an actor and an actress. You know if they're connected to the material. You can feel it in a way that sometimes if you're doing large-scale action pieces, maybe you're not feeling until you edit it all together. Certainly you feel an incredible euphoria when those things are done right. But the groundwork and the intimacies, I think I'm saying something very, very obvious, but it's just the care for these people. I just love these characters,
Which brings the story to life also, like the connection with the characters.
Nobody's going to a movie to look at a road. You know what I mean? And the one thing that we all look at are the people in the movie. And it sounds so basic, it's so obvious, but maybe it bears repeating. It's like, that's why Leonardo DiCaprio is Leonardo DiCaprio, and Sean Penn and Benicio. It's the only thing that people care about. Maybe I shouldn't be that. I should say it's the only thing I care about.
That's fair. I want to take the opportunity, the fact that we have film students from several colleges here and content creators who are passionate about film. I wanted to ask you, just to wrap things up, if you could give one piece of advice to all the film students, not only present with us right now, but in Latin America, maybe watching this right now, who want to tell stories that last, stories that, like this one, live in your mind for decades, what advice would you give them?
Oh my gosh. Well,
no pressure.
No, I know, but Robert Altman always said, don't take advice from anybody, and that was his advice was, don't take advice, which is a pretty good line, but it's also not very helpful either. It's very, nobody likes free advice, right? Because everybody's got advice, right? So that's it. Maybe he was onto something and saying everybody is an expert. but nobody's an expert. I mean, that's what I learned. I used to think like, wow, you know, when I finally make it in Hollywood, I'll get there and I'll have all the stuff that you need to make a movie. Let me tell you, I've been there. There's no new shit. It's all that. There's nothing waiting for you on the other side of success or a bigger. There's nothing waiting for you. You have it all already in your pocket. I swear to you. There's nothing. There's no piece of gear. There's no expert. Maybe the thing that is there, that if you found, or maybe you haven't found yet, you search for, is your collaborators and your family to make films with. It's the only thing you're really going to remember at the end. It's the only thing that I remember are the days and the joys of working with people that I love. Maybe that sounds slightly romantic, but I swear to you it's true.
And I think it's a good advice. Like, work with people that you love, and then the process will.
Yeah, and don't also want. I mean, well, now I'm babbling on. You want to wrap it up? I'll say one more thing. Don't try.
That's okay. I'll get spoiled later.
Don't try and tell some story that you don't know anything about. You know, just tell your story. There's a million original stories, and they're inside each person. If you tell that story, it's never been told before. I mean, that's just math. That's common sense. Your story is your story. Mine is mine. Tell that story, and it's brand new, no one's ever heard it.
Work from a very personal perspective.
Yes, that's the only way.
And well, in that note, because I just got the permission for it a little bit more, what would you tell your younger self about the importance of failure in the artistic creation? Because I think it's also a part that we have to take into consideration, the possibility of failure.
Right. When I went to the Sundance Lab and I was a fellow there was great philosophy there. Was that because it was, they said you're here to fail and then fail again better the next day and then fail again better the next day. It's a nice phrase, a way to put it. So the idea that if you think that every single day there aren't going to be failures, you are completely hypnotized and you're kidding yourself. It's just the recovery from the failure and moving forward. And when we go to work every day and you are plowing along and you are just scoring the ball, everything is going so well, you cannot believe it. You are patting yourself on the back. You think you are the greatest team to do this. And let me tell you, something happens inevitably by lunch and you're failing, you're falling all over yourselves, you kind of, and that's the beautiful nature of it. And which is kind of fun to conquer. It's like, and then you get back and you try to recover. So failure is part of it. And generally, if you're failing, it means that you're heading in the right direction. You're heading towards something. You're trying to do something great. I mean, it's part of the game. You better embrace it.
I love the way you phrased it, like the failing a little better every day. I think that's a very solid piece of advice for.
Yeah, but then again, don't take any advice. Don't take any advice.
Say you're all day.
Because sometimes when I don't want to say this and name any names. I have met people who are supposed to be like the experts in their field at what they do, and you listen to them talk and you think like, that's not a good way to do it. But your insecurity thinks like, well, who are you to say that? What do you know? You're 20 years younger. This is how we do it. It's like, that's bullshit. There's always a better way to do it. And by the way, there's always sometimes there's a reason why things aren't the way they are. It's just being loose, playing loose, looking for better ways to build a mousetrap. I guess.
Bueno, ya vamos saliendo de esta increíble masterclass. La verdad es que estuvo súper padre. Fue poquito tiempo, hasta Paul dijo, ay, viene tan lejos para tan poquito tiempo.
Sí, justo, al final dijo de que, oye, México, ¿qué onda? Vine hasta acá y me tuvieron como poco más de una hora. Fue poco más de una hora, ¿no?
Fue bastante corto, la verdad.
Sí.
Todos nos quedamos con ganas de más. Y bueno, es que con Paul Thomas Anderson, ¿quién no quiere escuchar todo lo que nos tiene que decir?
Sí, claro.
La verdad es que fue una conferencia muy interesante. La disfruté mucho. Doc, cuéntame, ¿cuál fue tu parte favorita?
Pues hubieron varias preguntas que me atrajeron bastante. O sea, Paul, la verdad, tiene opiniones tanto muy fuertes como muy de valor, en mi opinión también. Y algo con lo que me quedé mucho fue en la parte que dijeron de que, danos un consejo, ¿no? Para todos nosotros estudiantes de cine, ¿no? Que estamos haciendo cortos, demás, que estamos empezando, demás en la industria creativa. Y lo primero que dijo fue, el primer consejo es no tomes ningún consejo, no pidas consejos, ¿no? Que todo sea muy genuino. Ya a partir de ahí empezó a elaborar más en los consejos que él da, ¿no? Sí. Pero ahorita Gon de hecho justo mencionó algo que me pareció muy chistoso, que es como la alegoría, o como dijo, de que el dilema del consejo de Paul Thomas Anderson, ¿no?
No tomes consejos, pero ahí va mi consejo. Sí, la verdad es que eso fue algo bastante chistosto y sí digo cosas de valor. A mí lo que más me gustó, la verdad, fue cuando dijo como no tengas miedo de equivocarte, y el hecho de que tus errores te hacen darte cuenta que estás haciendo algo y estás trabajando hacia algo, entonces que equivocarse es importante. Es parte del camino, creo que es un muy buen recordatorio porque especialmente cuando empiezas a crear dices como tiene que salir todo perfecto, y cuando sacas errores dices ¿qué estoy haciendo? Te puedes empezar a cuestionar, y no, justamente fue un buen recordatorio de que equivocarse es parte del camino y significa que estás trabajando para alcanzar algo, ¿no?
Justo, de ahí aprendes.
Exacto.
Y otra cosa que sí me gustaría mencionar, que se me hizo muy bonito, que es justo cuando estás empezando, cuando yo llegue a tal lugar y tenga tal cosa, tal cámara, lo que sea, no, o sea, si acaso es cuando más bien esté con tal gente, con tales gentes, mi familia, para hacer esto, ¿no? Eso es lo que verdaderamente se da y es lo que verdaderamente te nutre. Con eso también me quedé muy cañón. Muy poético el señor, la
muy
verdad.
Poético. Nos queremos mucho, crew de Beyond the Screen y crew de gente que trabaja en estas cosas. Pero bueno, la verdad es que fue una experiencia increíble. Estamos muy felices y agradecidos de haber podido venir. No olviden darle like, suscribirse si quieren que vayamos a más eventos y les hagamos este tipo de coberturas. Dejen sus comentarios qué fue lo que más les gustó de Paul Thomas Anderson, y pues no se pierdan One Battle After Another, 25 de septiembre, solo en cines, está en IMAX. No pierdan
Hay que verla en el formato original.
Vayan al cine. Y pues eso es todo, muchísimas gracias.
Nos vemos, Billón. Ok, postcréditos. Rex, ¿qué acaba de suceder ahorita?
Estoy temblando literalmente. Estábamos terminando de grabar el final del episodio, guardando nuestras cosas y de la nada me pasará. Y yo dije, güey, esa persona se parece un poco a Paul Thomas Anderson. Venía como muy tranquilo y casual. Y luego me di cuenta que sí era, pero ya me empezó a caminar hacia atrás. Le dije a Doc de que no, sí es. Y Doc dijo de que vamos.
O sea, tú real dijiste, no, ya está muy lejos, ya está muy lejos. Y yo agarré a Rex de la mano y dije, a la chingada, le vamos a pedir una foto. Aquí vamos a poner ahorita la foto. Dan también le pidió una foto, vamos a poner las fotos. Estuvo mucho.
Una foto, soy una gran fan. Y me dijo de que sí, rápido. Y ya nos la tomamos. Se tomó todavía una selfie con nosotros y una con Dan. Muy buena onda. No sé qué acaba de pasar.
Ahora sí, adiós, Billón.
Adiós, Billonders.